Hello again, this is Randy in the shop. Today's project going to be reconditioning a set of rods here. One of my channel viewers just bought a sunnen honing machine and he didn't have any idea how to use it. So today I'm going to kind of walk them through the basics of what to look for and how to use it, how to set it up. So right now I'll bring you over to the machine and I'll show you some of the things that you have to do. Be right back. Okay, I'm over at the machine now. I'm going to try not to be in the way of the camera here. I already set my mic for the inside diameter of the connecting rod. This is a small journal Chevy, so it calls for 2-inch 125 is inside bore diameter on the connecting rod. So you take your mic and you put it on here like such, and then you put it on there. When you find the spot, you just zero out the dial. Takes a little bit of practice. You get it so it reads 0 while you lock that in, just like that. And you lock the gauge face. How you adjust it is you take this little knob right here. This is the locking mechanism that locks your gauge. And then this is your dial here. It brings the fingers in and out. I'll bring it back over to the bench. Be right back. This is the bearing book here. It gives you all your specifications for the housing bores of the connecting rods and the housing bore of the mains. This particular motor is a small journal for small journal 327, being that when Chevrolet went later on to the 350, the early 350s were small journal, but then they changed it and they enlarged the journals on the 350. I'll put another page here. Here's a 350, and they're showing the housing bore and the connecting rods at 2.2247 to 2.2252. Why they did that, I don't know. I would assume that they did that because the motors were getting bigger, so they wanted better support on the mains and the rods. That's why when you get a 400, the 400 mains are actually about 200 thousandths bigger than a 350 main. So then what you do is you put a connecting rod on the gauge after you set it, and check it, see how round it is. I'll bring it back over to the rod hone and we'll show you that. Be right back. Okay, back over at the rod hone here. I've got a connecting rod. We'll put it in the gauge here, and when you turn it, you can see how much out of round it is when you swivel it back and forth. It's about this one here is about 6/10, 7/10 out of round. Goes 3/10 to the small side and almost 6/10 to the big side. So this connecting rod here is about 1/1000 out of round. And to fix that, what you have to do, take the cap off, and if you have a cap grinder, you put the rod in the grinder and you grind about 3/1000 off of the connecting rod, and you bolt it back together, and then put it back on here, see exactly where you're at, and then you start machining it. I'll be right back. Okay, I got the rod in the vise. I got some just plain flat jaws in the vise, and loosen it up here. You always want to torque your connecting rod to the specification for your rod bolts, which in this case is 60 foot-pounds. Before you go and check it. See, this is the part here that you're gonna grind on the rod cutter to make it smaller. You can't do the cap because the cap has these locating dowels in it here. You can do the cap, but you have to pull these dowels out, and they're really hard to get out. And if the connecting rod's not that bad, why just do the cap, or do the cap, do the connecting rod, and on a rod where the bolts are pressed in, then you grind the cap. Hope that makes sense. Be right back. One other thing you can do too, if you don't have a cap grinder, is you can take and put the connecting rod on a flat plate, preferably a granite plate, with a piece of sandpaper, and just lightly sand this. I'm going to stand this up here a second so you can see. And just lightly sand the parting line of the connecting rod like that. You'd be surprised, it doesn't take a lot to take, a couple thousandths off the connecting rod. So I'll get this put back together, and we'll go back to the honing machine, and I'll show you how it works. Be right back. Okay, I'm back over at the rod hone. Now, when you put your mandrel in, This hook engages in the feed inside, but the mandrels also say, like this one right here, it says under 2.2 inches and over 2.2 inches. And depending which side you're going to use, you have to line up the arrow with this sleeve. The arrows have to match. And you put this back in. If we can get it back in now. There we go. I think. Tighten it down. After I cut it, the cap is showing it's about 2/1000 out of round. Well, now we start honing it. Put my foot on the pedal and adjust my pressure. You got a gauge here that will show you how much pressure you actually have on it. Connecting rod on there, let it rest on there, and then just you can feel it when it starts getting round. Down to 3/10. Down to 1/10 right there. can see how nice that makes it look. Got a slight amount of crosshatch. This parting line you can barely see in there when it's done. That's it for the big end, and now I'll show you how you check the small end. Be right back. All right, I'm back. To do the small end of the connecting rod, you have this fixture here, and what you do is you put a wrist pin in here. Open this up a little bit. Make sure that your blocks are clean. Take a rag and wipe them off really good, and then go over it with your finger, because your fingers will get that last little bit of lint off of there. Put that on there like that. Line this pin up with the bottom of the gauge close you can, so it doesn't rub on the screw. And you put this one in so it's about 1/8 inch from the slot. This tool has a slot in it here, right there. Put your wrist pin in there. Make sure that's about 1/8 inch from there. This one here is going to be flush with the bottom. And then you lightly tighten your screw. Back it off a little bit, and then tighten it, and then back it off a 1/4 turn, just enough to hold the pins. And then what you have to do is your gauge on the sunnen hone is going to have fingers on it that you're going to have to remove, and for going down to the small size. I'll bring it back over to the hone, and I'll show you what I'm talking about with the fingers, and we'll pull them off, and we'll set the gauge for this, and then we'll check the wrist pin size. Be right back. Okay, we're back over at the hone now, and I've got a little Allen wrench here. We'll remove these fingers. Off of here. There's one. Needs to screw in. Like so. And we'll bring this gauge over, unlock this here, turn this in. That rests over the top of it right like that. And you adjust this out till it starts to move. Went the wrong way. Well, really touchy. pivot around just like the connecting rod with the micrometer till you get your biggest, till you get to a 0 point. Right there. And then you set your gauge to 0 and recheck it here. Okay, now your gauge is set for your connecting rod, your pin size on the small end of the connecting rod. And I'll get a connecting rod, we'll see what it looks like. This on there. Looks like these rods are going to need new pin bushings. You want about 6 to 8 tenths on the connecting rod on the wrist pin end of the rod, and I've got 1/1000. So these rods are going to need wrist pins. Let me grab a couple more and see what they look like. Yeah. Yep. That's about 1/1000 and 3/10 right there. Let me zoom you out here a little bit. You can see. Yeah. Pins are actually out of round too. The bushings are. No. I'll get a new connecting rod here that I got in a box, and we'll check that one. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. This is one of the new connecting rods that's going on the 377 or 380 build, and we'll see what that looks like. Yeah. These here need to be honed a little bit. I'm looking at about 4/10 clearance on there. Yeah. You can see how much out of round that other one was there. So these rods here need the pin bore honed just a little bit. And these other connecting rods here, these used ones that I'm going to recondition, what I have to do is make a fixture to go in here, to go in the pin bore of the connecting rod and push the bushing out, and then press in new bushings, and we'll hone the bushings to fit. Let me go back a second here. If you don't have this wrist pin setting fixture here, what you can do is just take a micrometer and mic your wrist pin and put the micrometer across the gauge just like I did before. Set it for when you was setting the gauge for the big end here. if you don't have this pin setting fixture. On reconditioning rods, how the rod hone actually works. It's not rocket science. It just takes a little bit of time and patience. And when you get done machining the rods, I take them apart, wash them, and then what I always do, I'll take the cap off. And I got a little stone that I use. Made by carbonics, and I just take and lightly stone this edge. Just take the sharp edge off. Just like that, just so it doesn't feel sharp to the fingers. That way when you roll the bearing in, it doesn't try to peel the metal up on the back side of the bearing. Just like that. All you got to do is just break that edge just a little bit. So there you go. I hope that answers your questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to send me a message. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later.